All right, so we're doing a video on NBA superstardom. For reference, this video is being recorded on Kobe's birthday, and a lot of things are going to coalesce in the video that are seemingly unrelated, but like they're what led me to make the video in the first place. A lot of 2K ratings have come out, blah blah blah. There's a shit ton of players that are over the 90 rating threshold, and I mean it's really relevant because back in the day when I first started getting into 2K, 2016. Yes, I know. Oh my God, you're so younger. Oh my God, you're so old. Blah 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 blah. We're all old. We're all young. Fine. It's important because I think that today there is more superstars than there have ever been in the past in NBA history, and not only because the league is so wide open, but because there are so many guys that are talented at that level of stardom. But so it is important for us to like actually clarify what superstar means because this is the world's most thrown around term, and they use this for like anybody. A big culprit of using it for like fucking anybody is Stephen A. Smith. Do you believe Damian Lillard is a superstar? I don't. This is one of the guys that he'll use the word for. Do you believe that we should have to debate if Giannis is a superstar? I don't, but this is something that, since we're labeling other players in this tier that don't fucking belong there, you're asking yourself, Giannis is just a superstar? Like, that feels wrong. It's like, for a long time, niggas were debating, is Jokic really that good? Is he a superstar? Fuck yeah. I don't know why we were having that one. So it's really important for me to clarify, A, what I believe is a superstar, and B, what the rest of the NBA fandom as a whole should believe is a superstar, because we got to stop. There has to be a cutoff point, and there is a cutoff point right in this room standing with us. I'm going to be honest, the reason this is really important is because guys, normally I would say the number one guy on a championship team, like the number one guy, the one who we're like all going to shit on when they don't win the championship. The person who's had those expectations, who has those expectations of winning a championship sometime in their career, not just because we know they're a super talented guy and they are playing on a good roster, but because of how talented this guy is, he can transcend the roster to make them in contention status. Like, we're looking at this guy like, oh, damn. Would we be surprised if Giannis won another championship in his career as the number one guy? No. Is the team awful? Absolutely. Have we seen Giannis be the number one on a championship team? Yes. Kobe in the early part of his careers was still a superstar in my opinion, even though he wasn't the number one guy on a championship team until 2008 and 9. And the reason he was is because, well, for starters, this guy right here, he would have been the number two option to prime Shaquille O'Neal. Michael Jordan would have been the number two option to Shaquille O'Neal. There's not a single player in NBA history who would not have been the number two option to Shaquille O'Neal. And before you say XYZ center, I just want you to know Wilt Chamberlain would not have been as good as Shaq was in that era. He wouldn't have been. And the winning version of his play style did not look as good as Shaq did in prime. So shut up. And before anyone brings up like Hakeem and stuff, yes, bro, Hakeem would have played the backseat to that version of Shaq. That version of Shaq is genuinely one of the greatest players of all time, point blank, period. Anyway, and these are just the two guys that are in the GO conversation, so I don't even know why the fuck you give a shit about that. Like, duh. Who else? Nigga, Hakeem would have came off the fucking bench for Shaq. Argue with your mama. Duh. Well, especially considering the fucking offense was predicated around how Shaquille O'Neal played for a fucking obvious reason. But anyway, superstars in today's league. First of all, I'm just going to talk about the ones that are fucking obvious because, like, if you don't believe this person is a superstar, I have no idea what's wrong with you, but there's something wrong with you. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously a superstar, just won MVP, Finals MVP, Western Conference MVP. I know you're sitting there thinking to yourself, oh my God, he's that good, but like, Jesus Christ, how many MVPs did he have? The only MVP he didn't win this season was All-Star MVP. Do we care about that one? I don't think we should. So then you obviously have Nikola Jokic, who is considered the best player on the planet. If this guy's in a superstar, I don't know what to tell you. Now, even if you don't consider this guy the best on the planet, you want to give the nod to Shai, that's fine. Giannis, I'm not arguing with me. Argue with your mama. Giannis, Jokic. Embiid, when healthy, is in this category, but considering Embiid has availability issues, I'm not going to include him on this list because of the availability issues, but Did we not see what Embiid was doing after he won an MVP that many people considered to be whatever fraudulent? I know I did consider it to be fraudulent. We saw what he did after winning that for the Jesus Christ, the early parts of the season. Yeah, I'm sorry if you don't think that guy was an MVP. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, and let's go ahead and that was Jokic, Giannis, and Luka. Obviously, Luka is also a superstar. Even though Luka had a down year last year, I think that has a lot to do with switching teams. For one, playing with LeBron James is quite interesting. Not being on the team that you were drafted on, even though you've been there for 5 years and you've been an All NBA. Sorry, 6 years. You've been an All NBA player, or 5 of those 6 years. Really interesting trade there. I think we can all agree on that. And then here's where we start to get into the tiers of guys who had previously been superstars to me, but like, am I gonna continue saying you're a superstar? LeBron James. Do I believe LeBron James at this age in his career can still be the number one guy on a championship team? No. Do I believe that if you can get to that part in the playoffs that LeBron could be the best player on the team? Sure. Absolutely. If you can get to the finals and have LeBron on the roster, that he can show you those moments of him still having that in him. Is he consistent enough at that level of basketball? No, not consistency overall. At that level to be a superstar anymore? Probably not. Steph Curry is the same thing. Especially because Steph Curry has injury problems. Don't even get me started on those. And then there's Kevin Durant, who is, this is the one that people consider to be better than these two, even though I don't think Kevin Durant has ever been better than either of these two players, and probably never will be, to be quite honest. Hot take, I know. But, this guy being a superstar at this age and part of his career, probably not. Like, he is on that border tier to me. And then I'm going to list some guys that are like, yes, bro, they are really, really, really good. And sometimes they're in my top 10. Do I think they're superstars? It's really hard to have that conversation. Anthony Edwards. I'm not going to lie, he just develops his playmaking even a little bit more. I'm throwing him in that fucking tier. I don't care. Because, let's be honest, the media is going to do it, and they've been trying to do it for fucking years now, even though he's clearly not on the same level as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Luka Doncic or these other guys. But the fact that he is pretty much doing exactly what I need from Steph, and he plays at a higher defensive level than Steph, I don't know how we can still have these arguments of he's not ready for this thing, but at the same time, him having these numbers of this shit. I don't know, dog. Certainly there are deficiencies in his game. Oh, by the way, Jason Tatum is also one of these border prospects that I always go back and forth on. And I know you're saying to yourself, Jason Tatum was the best guy on that championship team. And to that I say, did you see who they played against? Yes, you played who was in front of you, but did you see who they played against? And did you see how bad he was when playing against said teams? Because be honest with yourself. Throughout that playoff run, who was the hardest person? Who was the best person that guarded him? Think about it really quickly. I know you're saying to yourself, why does that matter? Andrew Nembhard was one of the best defenders they had on him. He had a terrible playoff run last year. Be honest with yourself. And we have good sample sizes for those games too, by the way. And even in the series where they swept the Pacers, that was the closest series by point differential. It was pretty obvious to me that he shouldn't be in that tier until he plays better. And now we saw him play better in the playoffs, but he's now injured. So it's he was so briefly one. And now it's just I don't know if I'm going to ever have you back in this conversation again. Kawhi Leonard also has one of these things. Kawhi, when I was shitting on him in the playoffs, because I remember, if you actually watch any of those playoff videos, which congratulations, those were they were slogs to make sometimes. If you watch any of those videos, you would know that I said Kawhi was having a dog shit playoffs at the beginning of the series, and then slowly he started to look really, really nuclearly hot, and I was like, man, this makes me think of Kawhi as a superstar. It is hard to argue. It's hard to argue it, but the easiest way to take him out of the conversation is availability. Another thing, if you're not available, I'm not labeling you in a superstar tier because it's hard to have an opinion on someone who I don't see play basketball nearly enough. I'm going to take a real quick break, pause this video, and I'm going to re-look over some other guys just to make sure that I'm not missing anyone. All right, I'm back and I'm looking at more consistent players that should be theoretically in this conversation in the future, but we have no idea if they will be. So let's look over really quickly. Cade Cunningham. Do I think this guy is a superstar? I think he's approaching the tier, and I think he could be in there as quickly as this season because from what we saw from him in the latter half of the last season, all the way through the playoffs, yeah, he has that. He's getting those superstar looks and options. They're definitely treating him like he is one, and honestly, he could be one. Wemby is obviously going to be a superstar given any more development. Like, he was clearly the best defender on the planet, and it's not even close. And then his offensive game is like, what are the limitations of this? I wonder how far this can go, is like the thing you're thinking about him. If that's not a superstar in the making, I really don't know what is. And yes, I know you're saying to yourself, dude, you're just saying things off of vibes. So what about Jaylen Brown? He won Finals MVP in that last Finals previous to this one. Dude, if I think Jason Tatum's on the fence, what makes you think I'm gonna fucking do tricks and backflips for Jaylen Brown? Jaylen Brown is the reason why I don't think Jason Tatum is a superstar. There's no way that motherfucker is one. God damn, no. It took a while for me to really feel like the difference in like differentiations between those two, and last year's playoffs certainly didn't fucking help that case for Jaylen Brown, because if anything, it made it very clear who the best player on the planet was, who the better player was. Because I'm not gonna lie, the reason I've had Jason Tatum always in this thing is in this conversation of is he a superstar or is he not a superstar, is because, hey dude, you are playing really similar to Jaylen Brown, and I don't think Jaylen Brown is anywhere fucking near that conversation. You need to differentiate yourself and clearly show me you're the number one. He did that. That's why he's in these conversations now. Unfortunately, he got injured, so yeah, but I would label his performance from last season definitely in that conversation. Duh. So we have so obviously we have the Jalen Brunsons of the world. Do I think Jalen Brunson's a superstar? Probably not. There are still some very big deficiencies in his game, in my opinion, just from like the playmaking department, and for him to be a lead offensive player, especially considering that his defense is so poor. No, I don't think he's a superstar. He can have superstar moments, but him being the superstar on your team, nah, I just no. So let's look over at some other guys. Oh, by the way, let me just throw out some names out there, just so like we get a vibe for this. Tyrese Halliburton, Donovan Mitchell. I think Mitchell is close to that conversation because of the obvious things, like his ability to score at such a high level. He still has playmaking deficiencies that lead me to believe that he's not a superstar. Now, his playmaking isn't fucking awful, but let's be honest with ourselves. Sometimes it was the 3-point shooting last year was kind of inconsistent, especially in the playoffs, which was really absurd. Now, he was still getting 40 without the threes, which is, that's a reason. Now, the reason he's not in here in that superstar conversation for me, though, at this point, is because we haven't seen it. I know it's kind of hard to penalize a guy for this, but, some conference finals appearances would really help. Or you being in, some of these MVP conversations would really help. Now, as far as Tyrese Halliburton, well, Tyrese Halliburton is going to get the exact same treatment that I gave Jason Tatum because he's injured right now. So even if I wanted to say he was one, he's not. And then, more importantly, I just, if we're looking at the parts of the season where Tyrese Halliburton is fully healthy, which are rare, I will say that. That's another thing that's making me lean towards a no. He's a very good player. He's giving you around 18 and 10, which is really good, especially considering he's averaging 10 assists. So if he's more of an aggressive scorer and he's getting closer to that 20 mark, probably 9 or so assists would make me feel more comfortable in putting him in the superstar tier. I know you're saying, why would these numbers be better than these? It is really hard to be that good and that efficient and consistently the number one guy on a playoff team when you're passing the ball that much. Especially because Tyrese Halliburton uses his passes to make his offense, to make his scoring ability easier instead of vice versa, which I think is more important to basketball. Because if we look at LeBron James, especially in today's NBA, if we look at the LeBron James archetype in 2020 versus Magic Johnson, one of these is much more obtainable. The reason Magic Johnson's thing would be harder for anyone not named Magic Johnson to replicate in today's NBA and for him to win that many championships is because you need to be more of an offensive presence from the scoring perspective in today's games than you did in the past. So if Tyrese Halliburton can do that, and also I just don't think he has the volume of a superstar. He's hit the superstar shots. He's done them. He's had the moments. He's very clutch too. But like we still do need to see volume scoring from him. I know the hamstring was a massive injury and a massive deflator. We did see though that if he was helped from what we saw in Game 7 though, he was ready for the moment. I think we can crown him a superstar if he comes back from this healthy. But again, there are players ahead of him that I just think are functionally better than him at this point in time. And if he gets better than those guys, if he becomes better than those guys, then I can put him in the superstar conversation comfortably. But we're not at that point yet. Poor man's Wemby. I know you're saying, who is that? Evan Mobley is a poor man's Wemby at this point in time. This is the real difference between him and Wemby. The shooting and really just the shooting. Because I do think in terms of guarding the perimeter, not like in terms of like if you switch him onto the perimeter, who is a better defender most likely? It's probably Evan Mobley because he's a little bit more mobile than Wemby is at his size. There are obviously problems with Evan Mobley's game. He's not as polished as some of these other guys offensively, and I think he could be in that discussion. Chet is also in that same kind of archetype of players, and they could be superstars one day, but they're not superstars yet. Cat is never going to be a superstar for obvious reasons, in my opinion. It's his defense from his position. It's just not good enough. That's like a massive flaw in his game. His ability to not be a center. As a center, you need to be like a defensive anchor, and if you're not going to be a defensive anchor, you need to be fucking Jokic. Jokic does have a very obvious flaw in his game, where so he's not the world's greatest rim protector, but the way he makes up for that is his playmaking and passing, and also just his scoring. Now he does have that problem where he is not as willing of a scorer as he is as a passer, which can be problematic. And we did see one of the worst playoff performances from him in a while, and I just mean maybe ever, to be quite honest, but. It's not going to limit me from saying the guy who won Finals MVP in a very, 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 very dominant run is a superstar just because I saw one really bad playoffs and a matchup that I thought he would have a problem with because they had double bigs and they were able to throw everything against him because he had a bad performance against a historically great defense. I'm going to just say that he's not a superstar. I guess LeBron wasn't a superstar in 2007 because he had one of the worst series of his life against the Spurs. And I guess in 2011 he also wasn't a superstar. Devin Booker should not be in this conversation. He is just not as I'm sorry. Come here real quick. You know those playmaking deficiencies I said that Donovan Mitchell and I said Anthony Edwards has? He doesn't have those. The problem with this nigga is like he just is allergic to being on winning teams. And I don't believe in a superstar who's gonna win this little, bro. And I know you're saying to yourself, it's not his fault. He signs the fucking contracts that keep him in this situation. It is certainly a little bit his fault. Okay? And the fact that when we did see you on a team that made the Western Conference Finals, we were still debating if Chris Paul was better than you. And that is old as Chris Paul. And then, when we saw you have some explosive points between you, we were like, man, is he better than Kevin Durant? I don't know. I thought for a while he was. And then the very next season, KD showed he was that much better than you. You need to figure out if you're in that tier or not, because a lot of your accolades and previous people around you, peers, are surpassing you. Figure that shit out. By the way, that was like the consistent top 20-ish players. Paulo could probably be that eventually, but I need to see a leap from him. And even if I saw a leap from him, it would just be a very, very good all-star, not a superstar. Oh, by the way, guys, if I've fallen out of that tier, like, Jimmy Butler and shit, Jimmy Butler's crazy. Yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Oh, James Harden also fell out of that tier. But it's been a while since that happened. But yeah, that was gonna do it for me. That was my who on God's green earth do I think is a superstar and why do I think they're a superstar and stuff. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you watch basketball who like the consensus guys are, and then like those framework guys are like, I don't know. By the way, the reason I'm so willing to take out of the older guys out of the equation, such as LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, is because, dude, how deep are we into their careers? Do we honestly expect this shit to go on for much longer? We were saying that about LeBron in 2015. It's 2025. Do we expect this to go on for that much longer? By the way, Curry and KD were in their primes in those eras. Do we expect that to go on for 10 more, for like 5 or 3 more years? I don't think so. I think this is the first season where it will be pretty obvious that there is a decline from these guys. And I mean a very noticeable one, and not like just the brief stints that we saw last year. I mean, it'll be obvious. Alright, though, that's going to do it for me. If you liked the video, like the video. If you didn't like the video, don't like the video. Tell me why you didn't like the video in the comment section below. Blah, 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 blah. Peace.